today. I'm a guest teacher and I'm visiting here from California. And I'm going to help you learn a strategy today that might help you with your reading for your class, for this class and other classes. So we're going to learn a strategy, and I want to start with, what do you think a strategy is? Maybe you have a strategy that you use for some reason. What is a strategy? A skill? It could be like a game plan, a plan for getting something done. Okay? All right. And who has an example of a strategy? Yeah.
Underline.
Okay, so underlining is a strategy that you use for what purpose? For reading, okay, to help you go back and find the important information. So we underline to help us remember information. What's another kind of strategy? Anybody use strategies for sports or anything? What's the strategy you use? Sorry? Numbering your paragraphs so you remember like what order things happened in. Okay, that's a good strategy. What are some other strategies you might use? I'm sorry, I can't hear. So in football, a strategy for football. So in sports, we use a lot of strategies. So if your example is throwing the football, you have a strategy for throwing the football? Yeah. What is that strategy? Not messing up? Well, what are the steps you use for throwing the football? So you have to make sure you get your arm back and push it straight ahead, right? So that would be a strategy, like how do I make sure I get that ball to where it's supposed to go every time? Okay, so we're going to go on. And so I have a paragraph right here. That would be a paragraph like you might read for an assignment or if you were taking a test. So we're going to read this paragraph. I'll read it out loud to you. And then I'm going to ask you, what is the main idea? And I want you to think about, is this easy or is it difficult? And think about why. Okay? So I'll read the paragraph. Cells get energy through a process called cellular respiration. During this process, cells convert sugar, called glucose, and oxygen into water and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the gas we breathe out. This whole process releases energy for the cell to use. The energy is stored as ATP. The cell keeps ATP in storage like backup power. It can be taken out to be used as needed. By storing ATP, the cell always has the energy it needs. So, who could tell us, if you had the question on a test, what's the main idea? What would it be? What do you think? Go ahead. You had your hand up.
The way the cell gets energy.
Okay, so the way the cell gets energy. Okay? Who else could give us a main idea? Go ahead. Okay, so there's something about it, something changes to something else? Okay, that's pretty important information, yeah.
Creation of ATP.
The creation of ATP. Okay, so we have some ideas about what it's about. My question is, when you just read a paragraph code and then you answer a main idea question, is it easy or hard? What do you think? Thumbs up, it's really easy. Thumbs down, it's really hard, or something in between? And I want to see a thumb from everybody. Easy or hard? How easy, how hard? Medium? All right, so the question then is, why? For those of you who are finding it a little hard to just read a paragraph and come up with a main idea, why is that? I couldn't hear what you said. Oh, no, you're not.
Because it doesn't have that much detail?
Yeah, because the main idea, it has to leave out all the details, and there's a lot of detail in there. There's a lot of stuff in that paragraph about ATP and carbon dioxide, and so a main idea, we have to sort of figure out what's easy, what's the most important information, and what isn't, and that's really hard sometimes. And so that's why we need a strategy. So we in a passage, we get a lot of paragraphs and a lot of details. And so getting the gist is going to help us remember just the main ideas in the paragraphs. We can always go back and find the details if we need more detail. But for remembering a whole passage, we want to get just the main ideas out of the paragraphs. So, getting the gist is a strategy to help you remember the most important information in something you read. So I want you to read this with me. Okay, read this with me. Getting the gist, oh, I'm not hearing any voices. Wait, ready? Read it with me. Ready? Go. Getting the gist is a strategy to help you remember the most important information in something you read. So getting the gist is what? A what? It's a strategy, and it's a strategy for what? For what purpose? To help us with reading, but to help us what? To get the most important information, okay? There are 3 steps. We're going to go through these 3 steps today. And so, teachers in the room, we probably would not do all of this in one day. I'm compressing it into one day just for the purpose of demonstrating it, but you will probably spend a week or 2 doing a lot more teacher think aloud and scaffolding than we're going to be able to do just in one period today. Okay, so we're going to do this in 3 steps. And so the first one is to name the who or what the paragraph is mostly about. So I want you to say that with me. The first step is what? To name the who or what the paragraph is mostly about. Okay, so if we went back to this paragraph that we read about cells, what would you say the who or what is in that paragraph? What is that mostly about? What do you think? It could be cells, but to even get more specific, what do you think?
The cellular
Respiration? Yeah, it's this process called cellular respiration. So that's how cells get energy, but the paragraph is mostly about cellular respiration. So that would be the who or what in this paragraph. What did you think?
I loved it.
Okay, okay. All right, and so that's the first step, to name the who or what the paragraph is mostly about. The second step is to identify what is the most important information about the who or what. Okay, so we're going to name the who or what, and then we're going to name what is the most important information, and then the third step is, actually the most fun step, is to see if we can get all that information down into 10 words, to write a gist in 10 words or less. And you can use your 10 fingers to do that. You've got 10 fingers, and you can make up a sentence with 10 words, so you can use your fingers to make sure you're getting it into 10 words or less. Okay, so we'll practice together a little bit. So this is a passage that I'm going to model for you. I'm going to be the reader, and I'm going to think out loud so you can see what process you would have to do in your head when you're getting the gist. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to think out loud, and I'm going to do those steps of naming the who or what, naming the most important information, and then writing a gist in 10 words or less. After I do this with this passage, then you're going to do this with a passage that your teacher is going to pass out to you in a couple minutes. Okay? So, a seabird is any bird that spends most of its time at sea and depends on the sea and its islands for all its basic needs. The sea provides food, and its remote islands and rocky outcroppings provide safe nesting and resting places. For 60 million years, these highly specialized, diverse birds have adapted to life on the world's vast oceans. All right, so my first step is what? What do I have to do first? Name the
Who or what?
who or what. All right, so I did that, and I think the who or what is seabird. Does everybody agree with that? That paragraph is mostly about seabirds? All right, so that was the easy part, the who or what. Now I have to identify what's the most important information about the seabirds, and what in this paragraph is just extra detail that I don't really need to remember. So I did that. I've gone through and I've highlighted some things that I think are pretty important, that it spends most of its time at sea, it depends on the sea for all its basic needs, the sea provides food, the sea provides safe nesting and resting places, and then I made that into some notes. So I've got 3 important points that I think are important enough to remember, and now I'm going to use my 10 fingers to try to come up with a gist that gets as much of that information as possible into my gist, okay? So I did a couple of them. So here's the first one. Seabirds get what they need from the sea. Seabirds get what they need from the sea. So it was only 8 words. I could have added 2 more words to that to keep it 10 and under. And, okay, seabirds get what they need from the sea. So it doesn't say that they spend most of their time at the sea. And the sea does provide food, resting, and nesting places, but it doesn't get this idea of how it depends on the sea. So the second gist, when I started over, I got that idea of depending in there. Seabirds depend on the sea for everything they need. It's 9 words. And the second gist is a little bit better because it gets that idea of how it depends on the sea. Okay, does that make sense? You got that? Okay. So that is me showing you how to do it. And we're going to do this together in a moment, and your teacher's going to go ahead and pass that out. While she's doing that, there are 4 rules for this that you need to remember. First of all, the gist must be a complete sentence. If we went back to that paragraph about cellular respiration, and if I would say, what is the main idea? A lot of people would just say cellular respiration. Well, that's not a whole sentence. That doesn't tell me enough detail to actually remember it. It doesn't tell me what cellular respiration is or why it's important. So it has to be a complete sentence. The other thing is the main who or what only counts as 1 word. So if you've got 10 spaces, 10 words, and if you're reading a passage where it's a lot of words like cellular respiration is actually 2 words, in this strategy I get to count it as only 1 word. So it gives me a little more space to get my ideas in there. If we were reading about the United States Senate, which is actually 4 words, we could just count it as 1. And then a good gist contains information that will help you remember the important details in the paragraph. And there could be more than 1 good gist. So when we do this gist activity, one person might come up with a gist that's a good one. Another person, their gist might be completely different, but it still would be a good one. As long as it's a complete sentence and it has the important information in it, it's a good gist. And they can be different from each other. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Any questions? All right. So it's your turn to get the gist. And Ms. Harper, is there anything you want to say about this passage?
So yesterday we talked about exploration. We talked about how the Spanish came over, the British came over. Well, now we're going to focus on the French and how they explored Texas. Now you have a whole biography about, his name is Robert de La Salle. Okay? But we're only going to read the very last 2 paragraphs. So I want you to take your highlighter and I want you to put a bracket, a little box around the very last 2 paragraphs. Take your highlighter and put a box around the last 2 paragraphs. Those are the only ones we're reading because that's where it deals with Texas. That's where it's relevant to our class. So take your highlighter and put a box around those last 2 paragraphs. And on the front is where you're going to practice your get the gist. You're going to write your 2 sentences, 1 for the first paragraph and 1 for the second one. So, y'all follow along as Dr. Haager reads the first paragraph, starting with on February 6th.
All right, so when we're reading, you're following along and I'm going to read it out loud. Think about the 2 important things that you need for a gist. You need to know the who or what, and then what's the most important information about the who or what. So just be thinking about that while we read, and then we'll stop and talk about that together. On February 6, 1682, La Salle and 40 men reached the Mississippi River and began their journey south. On April 9, La Salle claimed the entire Mississippi River basin for France when he reached the mouth of the river near Venice, Louisiana. The claim included not only the Mississippi River, but all land where its branches extended, approximately 2/3 of the entire United States. La Salle named the region Louisiana after his king. On the return trip, La Salle and Henry de Tonty, one of his lieutenants, oversaw the construction of Fort St. Louis in 1682 on a butte above the river in modern-day Illinois. Today, the park is known as Starved Rock and is the most visited state park in the state of Illinois. Tonty stayed as commander of the fort while La Salle returned to France for more supplies. Okay, so who or what is this paragraph about? What's the who or what? Back there in the green sweater. La Salle. Okay. Anybody think differently? Okay, we all agree. So the who or what is La Salle.
You can use your highlighter. You can highlight La Salle. Highlight your who or what. Utilize those highlighters as tools.
Now, going through and picking out the most important information is the hard part. And it's especially difficult, I think, but especially helpful in your history materials that you read, because historians love to get a lot of details in their books and in what they write about. And there's a lot of detail in that paragraph. La Salle and his people did a lot of things. There were places that they went. There are dates that tell us when they went there. So we have to stop and think about what's the most important information in this paragraph. So let's go through it sentence by sentence and kind of think about, is this important or not important? And what about it's important? So on February 6, 1682, La Salle and 40 men reached the Mississippi River and began their journey south. Okay? So I think the fact that they went south is probably important. Sorry, I need to focus this a little bit. Okay. And then in the next sentence, on April 9, La Salle claimed the Mississippi River basin for France when he reached the mouth of the river. And the claim included not only the Mississippi River, but all the land where its branches extended, approximately 2/3 of the entire United States. So what would you say is the most important information there?
Think about the where. Where did they claim? Adrian? Okay, so the entire Mississippi River.
Uh-huh. And also the fact that they claimed it. What does that mean to claim? What does that mean when an explorer claims land? Yeah, and it's actually not exactly his, but it's his country's, right? He claimed it for France. So he's saying, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. He owns it, right? He's saying that France now owns this land, right? So he claims it. So he claimed the entire Mississippi River basin, and if I skip along, it included approximately 2/3 of the entire United States. That seems like pretty important information. Ms. Harper, am I getting the right information here?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
All right.
Make sure you're highlighting along with Dr. Haager. As she underlines, you highlight.
Okay.
So you have the same information.
All right. And then the next sentence is, he named the region Louisiana after his king, who was King Louis. Okay. And is there anything important there? I'm not sure if it's important that he named it Louisiana.
It'll be helpful to know because Louisiana is a what for Texas? Border states. Good.
Okay. And then goes on to say that on the return trip, La Salle and Henri de Tonty, that's how he would say it in French, one of his lieutenants, oversaw the construction of Fort St. Louis in 1682 on a butte above the river in modern-day Illinois. So probably the idea of the construction of a fort is important. Was that important
Because
enough?
we're talking about
Harper?
colonization. So he has settled down. He has created a permanent colony in Fort St. Louis.
And then today, that park is known as Starved Rock. It's highly visited. And Tonti stayed on as commander of the fort. And LaSalle went back to France for more supplies. So we've got some important information here. In fact, let me just write that into some notes. So the who or what is LaSalle.
You can
And
jot this down to the side. We're down at the
they
bottom.
made a journey south.
Don't put this on your note card. This does not go on your note card.
This is the in-between step before you get to your gist. It's getting the information so that we can see it and then make a gist. When you get really good at getting the gist, you won't need to make these notes on a piece of note paper. You're highlighting, you'll be able to go right to your 10-word gist because you are experts at it. But right now, we're just still learning the strategy. So we're going to do these notes as an in-between step. So they made a journey south. They claimed Mississippi River Basin, M-I-S-S-I-P-P-I, still have to do that, river basin that made up 2/3 of the United States, and named it Louisiana, and constructed a fort. Now, that's a lot of information. We're going to try and get it into 10 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Well, the who or what is usually the first word in your gist. So I'm just going to start with that. LaSalle.
So write this on your note card.
Wait, don't write it yet. We got to get it into 10 words
Okay,
first.
sorry. Go ahead.
Don't write it yet. We have to work it out in our heads with our 10 fingers. So let's try this. Let's see. LaSalle explored the Mississippi River and claimed 2/3 of the United States. For France is more than 10 words. Gotta try again. This is why you can't write it yet. Because you have to work it out on your 10 fingers before you put it to paper. Okay? So let's try again. LaSalle claimed the Mississippi region, comma, called it Louisiana, and built a fort. And it's too many words. I only have 2 words left. And stayed. Let's see. LaSalle claimed the Mississippi. LaSalle claimed the Mississippi region and called it Louisiana. I can't get it to 10 words. Can you help me?
Close enough?
LaSalle journeyed south and claimed Mississippi River named it Louisiana.
Oh, that's 10 words. Okay, all right. It doesn't leave the part about constructing a fort, but we have to leave something out. So that was pretty good. Okay, somebody else want to try? Don't forget that. Hold up.
Use your notes so you can come up with a 10-word gist.
Anybody else want to try?
We know it's going to start with LaSalle. So think about what did LaSalle do?
I like that one, but instead of journeying south, I'm going to say explored. Is that okay? Can I change that word to explored? All right. Explored. All right, and what else did you say?
LaSalle explored and claimed Mississippi River and named it Louisiana.
Called it Louisiana. I couldn't say your and part there because that would have made it 11 words. So I had to put a comma in there. but it's still a whole sentence, and it gets a lot of good information. I think it's safe to write that one down now. That's
Okay,
a
write that
good
on your
gist.
note card. LaSalle explored and claimed
Put the bases.
the Mississippi River, called it Louisiana.
We have
Change
a,
that to region or basin.
What's that?
Instead of river, call it region.
Region, okay. We have a friendly amendment here to call it the Mississippi region, which makes, or basin, Mississippi basin. Because that gets more than just the river, it gets the whole area in there. Thank you for that help.
So we're writing this on our note card. LaSalle explored and claimed the Mississippi region, called it Louisiana.
Okay, almost everybody's done writing. While you're finishing up, let me just sum up and share with you what we did, and then we're going to do one more paragraph. So, we read a paragraph, and we did this in-between step where we wrote down the who or what, and we wrote down the important information. We made some notes. When you become expert at getting the gist, you'll probably leave that step out and just highlight it and go right to making your gist. But for today, as you're learning the gist, you might want to make those notes. And the last period when we had some folks here, they were making notes on the side of their paper, and that would be okay too. Okay, so we're going to read that second paragraph, and we're going to do just that. I'll read it out loud with you, and then you're going to work with a partner or work on your own, whatever you prefer, and you're going to identify the who or what. You're going to underline what you're going to really think about. What's important to remember? What's the important information? Highlight it, and then try to come up with a 10-word gist. If you want to maybe don't write right away on your index card, not until you're sure you've got your gist. Maybe just write it at the bottom of your paper for practice and work it out. And then once you've got a 10-word gist that you're happy with, and we'll come around and talk with you about it. Once you get your good gist, you can put it on your index card. Okay, so this is a big paragraph. It's going to be a little challenging because it has a lot of information in it. And there's probably more than one gist that we could get out of here, okay? So let's read it together, and then you can think about the who or what and the most important information. In 1684, LaSalle and 300 hopeful colonists returned to North America in the hopes of establishing a large French colony along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. The trip, however, was a nightmare. It was plagued by pirate attacks, hostile Indians, and poor navigation. So I want to stop and think, do we know what those words mean? What does it mean that the trip was plagued by these things? Yeah, like ruined, like they had all these problems, right? So it was plagued by pirate attacks. They were attacked by pirates. Hostile Indians. What does that mean, hostile?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like fighting. They were not friendly, right? And poor navigation. What do you think that means? Yeah, and they probably got lost a lot. They had a hard time finding their way. Okay. One of LaSalle's supply ships became shipwrecked, and members of the expedition killed local Indians who had taken supplies from the wreck, making dangerous enemies. The expedition ended up in Texas, where they founded another Fort St. Louis Founded means that they made one, they started one there. Another Fort St. Louis, far from their target, the Mississippi River. So they were pretty far off track. During one of several searches for the river, 36 of LaSalle's men mutinied near present-day Navasota, Texas. And Ms. Harper, would mutiny be a word we should stop and
Yes.
think about?
Definitely.
Okay, you want to go ahead?
So, mutiny. So they did what? So LaSalle's men mutinied against him. What do you think they did, Austin? They turned. They fought back against him. Okay?
They turned against him, okay? They rebelled. And then it was here where LaSalle was murdered by one of his own men on March 19, 1687. The colony of Fort St. Louis would persist, meaning they stuck with it. It would persist until 1688 when its remaining residents were killed by Indians. Okay, so go ahead and let's just start with the who or what. What do you think the who or what is in this paragraph?
What are we talking about, guys?
Go ahead. What do you think?
LaSalle.
LaSalle? There might be more than just LaSalle though. Remember the who or what can be more than one word? I think that might help us a little bit. What do you think? Well, I would say LaSalle and the colonists. Because it's not just about him. All right, or it could just be LaSalle. Whatever, you have to decide. Okay, so that's the who or what. Now you have to think about what's the most important information. Go ahead and highlight it, and you can discuss it with a partner and talk about what you think is important and not important, and then we'll try to come up with a gist. We'll come around and check it with you. When you've got the important information, go ahead and try a gist.
Okay, to take those notes, you also have a whole blank side on the back of your paper. You can take those notes and write down practice gists. Make sure you have 10 words. So utilize all of your free paper and all of your free space.